Hey, thanks for stopping by That Kilted Guy videos, and what I'm going to show you today is part of my ongoing series of drywall finishing, and we're going to show you how to do taping. We're going to show you 3 different ways with mesh tape, paper tape, and a new product that you're going to find fascinating. We're going to show you that right after this. Thanks for stopping by again, and as always, I appreciate you guys stopping by and for subscribing. We'll leave you a link in the video description down below and at the end of this video, so watch to the end and be sure and subscribe if you want to see the upcoming videos we got coming out, and click that little bell icon. That way you'll get those notifications. Now what we're going to show you today is how to tape drywall, and I started out by coating this piece, everything behind it too, but in brown, and the reason is it's going to make this show up a lot better than if I did this over white. And we're going to show you 3 separate ways, so I'm just going to cut right to the chase and start showing you how to do this. We're going to try and make this a fairly short video. So first thing you want to do to tape your joint, let's imagine there's a joint right here. So you get out your tape and you start, what? No, of course I'm not going to use masking tape. I got something a whole lot better. It looks like this, paper tape. And so we're going to show you this right way to do this with some paper joint tape. Now this is the way that all of the new construction is done. There may be a few guys that will use mesh tape or something, but 99% will use this, and there's several reasons. It's a good quality product. It works well through tools, and when you do new construction, most guys use a set of tools. One of those tools that we often use is called a bazooka. It looks like in this picture right here, and I actually ran one of those for many years and got really good at it. So I've done a lot of taping, but we're going to show you how to do some hand taping. But there is another tool this will run through, and that is called a banjo. And no, I'm not going to pick you a tune. It's actually called a banjo in drywall terminology. And what it is basically a really cheap version of a quicker taper. So this tool costs you about $70, and it will run that paper tape through it. Now, nothing runs the mesh tape through it, so that's why we're going to show you these first. The way this tool works is you would put the tape in here, lock it down, and it's kind of hard to do when I'm trying to show you while holding it, but you open this lid up, you take the paper tape, it feeds right through here, and I have actually left this one dirty. There we go. I have actually run one of these thousands of times too, but it's not my favorite tool. I actually love the bazooka far more, but it's about a $2,000 tool. This is a $70 tool. So with what I do these days, this works. So all you do with this tool is load the paper in here like this, fill this section up with mud, and then as you pull the tape out of here, it comes across the mud and coats the bottom side of the tape. Stick it on the wall. You get to the end, and again, it's not loaded right. You just pull across that blade, tear it, and move on. And the way you hold these, it's got a handle here you can hold, but I've never liked that. So you just stick your hand through the back side and just run this down the wall. I guess I'll have to secure this to show you without the lid coming open. So you just run it down the wall, get to the end, tear it, and it puts the mud on for you. It'll save you a fair amount of time if you're going to be doing very much. So let's move on to just showing you how to do this by hand, because it applies the this is probably really noisy on camera. The technique for using a banjo is the same as for doing it by hand. So first thing I want to discuss is some advantages. Paper tape, number one, cost. It costs less than the rest of them, and it goes a long ways. This is a partly used roll. When we do it new, we actually start with a 500-foot roll. And you can see this will actually fit in that banjo and on the taping tool. So this goes quite a long ways before you run out. Now for home use, you can buy 250-foot rolls that weigh a lot less. Let's see, the other advantage is it is just a good strong product. I mean, it's got good side-to-side rigidity. It works well. Is it foolproof? No, I've seen a lot of cracks that had paper tape behind it, but I've seen it with all of them. So is there an absolute best product among these three? I think there might be, and I'm going to show you that when we get a little further along here. But let's show you how you would apply the paper tape. Now, I will mention this is actually the hardest of all of the tapes to apply for a beginner. I just recently fixed a job. Let's see if I can show that picture here. Those bubbles you see, those are called blisters. And that comes from not knowing what you're doing, and usually it comes from not putting enough mud on the wall or wiping it too tight. And then when it dries, first time you put a coat of mud on it, it blisters. And that was actually done by a contractor. So be careful who you hire out there. I had to go in and fix all this guy's nasty work. There's some other pictures here of some of the things he did, and he actually charged the homeowner for this. Luckily they haven't paid, because it was some of the worst drywall I've seen. But if he'd watched my video, he might have done it right. Second thing, use a real drywall joint compound. Don't go get some putty or something. You can use the fast setting joint compound, that's fine, but it needs to be an all-purpose type mud. This is a all-purpose mud called +3, like in this picture here, and it works great. But if you're going to do a lot of taping, the all-purpose green label lid, like in this bucket here, it's just purely heavyweight all-purpose, works the best. It just has better adhesion, but it also sands harder. This is a lighter weight mud, and it sands really easy. So it's what I've got today, so we're going to go ahead and use that. Now, to put this on, let's see what direction I want to do this. We're just going to put a little bead of mud on here, and you don't really even have to level it out. You could put it on like that if you wanted, but I prefer to smooth it out a little bit, then run your tape through that. And if it needs to be this length, for example, just put your knife on here and cut it. I'm kind of doing this backwards to the camera, so let me turn it around like this. We'll show, you just put your knife on there and cut it, and find somewhere to put that. Okay, now you got to wipe it down. If it's a short piece like this, you're going to want to hold it, because if you try and wipe it like this, a lot of times it'll slide like you saw there. And I kind of purposely put a little extra pressure and took all the mud back out. So let's put the mud back. So I either use corner of my pan, or you can just reach up here and hold it, and with your knife at about a 45-degree angle and medium pressure, just wipe it down. Okay, now when we do this thousands and thousands of times, we can often wipe that in one coat and get it right, but I'm trying to take it in slow stages, because I'd rather you wipe it 3 times and get it right than wipe it once and wipe too much out and get it wrong. So wipe it, and you just want to wipe it until it looks about like that. Now if I wipe it really firm, you see the difference right there. I wiped out all the mud, and it may feel stuck, but that's where as soon as it gets wet, you can see a slight difference. Most of the mud's on the tape. As soon as it gets wet with the next coat, it'll blister. So basically the steps again: put a decent coat of mud on, put the tape in, wipe it down in successive wipes until it gets to about that look there, and again, not wiping real hard, and that's it for the paper tape. So it's not real hard, but now it's actually got to dry, and the standard, if you're going to put a texture on this, is 2 more coats of mud if this is in a recessed joint, and it may take you a 3rd possibly if it's a butt joint, depending on how it comes out. But saying this is recessed, we're going to do 2 more coats of mud, and call it good. Now if you were doing mesh tape, let's talk about mesh tape first. The advantage to mesh tape is that it is self-adhesive. So in other words, I'm using this little tool here that just kind of automatically cuts it. And that's about all it does, is it just provides a roller, comes out. It's got a blade right here. You can probably see it better in this close-up. And that razor blade just allows you to cut it. And it's got a rolling wheel here. You can also put this one out for rolling it right into the angles, and it works pretty decent. I wouldn't really recommend this on angles, especially if you're a beginner. It's really not ideal for angles, so I'd stick to the paper tape. One reason, on paper tape, it's pre-creased. So you fold it down the middle, you've got an angle. This isn't. You have to work it into an angle, and it just really isn't as good. But it can be done, but I'd stay away from it. Get you a little roll of paper tape. It costs like $3. This cost about $8. So it's actually pretty cheap stuff. The second advantage is that this is self-adhesive. So you put it on the wall, it's already stuck. And it's not stuck so much that it's going to do any damage, but it's ready to coat. So essentially, you put that on the wall like that, it's at the same stage as this, because this still requires 2 coats of mud. This still requires 2 coats of mud. But let's go ahead and coat this and just see how it comes out. So you stick it on the wall. Now, don't use regular joint compound on mesh tape. If you're going to use mesh tape, you really need to use hot mud, which is like this right here. This is some 20-minute fast setting joint compound. It sets up chemically. It dries a lot harder. It's a little more expensive. It's harder to work with. If you watch some of my other repair videos, I show you how to mix it up. I believe it's the how to repair a small hole in drywall video. As a matter of fact, I'll put a link to that in the very end at the clickable links, and you can go watch that, and I'll show you how to work with hot mud more. I'm going to demonstrate it with this regular mud just because we don't need this to stay permanent here. The reason you use the hot mud, if you use regular mud, you'll get a lot more cracking. That's number one. Number two, it's really just recommended to use hot mud, but one time I decided to experiment, which you got to do now and then. So I coated a whole bunch of this with regular mud. Sure enough, I got a bunch of cracks, and I had to do a lot of work to fix it right. So we're going to demonstrate anyway. Again, that's at the same stage, but now should have brought my other wider knives in here, but okay, now through the magic of video, don't you always like that? What I'm going to do is show you how to coat this like I would. I wouldn't coat it with a 6-inch. I don't want to get you off on that track because that's the wrong way. You would want to use at least an 8-inch or a 10-inch knife. This is a 10-inch knife. So if we were going to coat it, we'd spread a coat of mud on there. I usually like it to be fairly consistently even, and then we feather it, and then laying it down, we go ahead and coat it. Now, I'm not going to get real into that because that's another video. If you watch my other videos called how to finish a recessed joint and how to finish a butt joint, I go into a lot more detail. But my point of doing this is that this is now on day 2 and this is now on day 1. So that's the big advantage to mesh tape, is that you can get it done faster. If you're using hot mud, you could literally in 20 minutes it'll be setting up, so in about 30 minutes you could put another coat on it. I use hot mud all the time because I do repairs, and I can do most any repair in 1 day by using hot mud. So I use a lot of mesh tape, and I see a lot of people out there argue about whether mesh tape is any good and what's best. You know, some people say no, never use mesh tape. I have done thousands of repairs. I've been doing pretty much nothing but drywall repairs for 15 years as Mr. Patch Drywall. So I've done thousands of them, and I've used mesh tape 99% of the time. Never had a call back for a crack. So I believe that done right with the mesh tape and the hot mud, it's just as good as paper tape. But like I said, there are advantages and disadvantages. If I were going to do my new house of my own, I'd use the paper tape. So they're both good products. Now I talked about a mystery product that not many people know about. I recently discovered it, and it's a pretty awesome product. Hey, we got to do that twice. It's too much fun. This one you could do all day because this is called Fibafuse and it weighs nothing. But is it strong? Well, you know, I've actually been experimenting with this stuff and I'm convinced it's pretty cool stuff. Now what is it? It is, hey, maybe I should read the label. It is a paperless drywall repair product. It is actually made from fiberglass. You can find more about this product at fibafuse.com. Now what the label says here is it's the paper tape alternative. All the benefits of paper tape with superior technical performance, 70% stronger for crack resistance. It's an open fiber structure for better bonding. It provides mold and mildew resistance, and it eliminates blisters and bubbles. Now does it do all that? I think so. It seems like it's a strong product. Now I don't know if I can show you this on camera or not, but this product is basically, you can see through it because it's a woven product, kind of like this is fiberglass, but this is much finer fibers and they're woven in a very random pattern instead of little squares. And because of that, I think it's got great strength, yet it's thin and it's lightweight. So the advantage is with that woven design, mud will kind of flow through it a little bit. So that should help with reducing blisters. Now, if you put on way too little, some big gaps in that, it's still going to blister.
Right.
One disadvantage is the way it tears. It doesn't tear like paper tape does. You can see it's a very ragged edge. It's kind of a minor thing. If you tear paper tape, you get your normal paper tear. The big advantage is the strength of it because of that woven design versus this square woven of the mesh tape. This I just think is not as strong because of that square woven, and it's not as fine. This has got so many little fibers. Feels like it's got good side-to-side rigidity, so it should work well on resisting cracks. It's easy to use. Now as far as cutting it, you know, I showed you it doesn't tear really well. Basically, to cut it, you just, let's see if I can show it for the camera, you just cut it like paper with a sharp knife like that. Let me show you something. They do say this is pre-creased, and if you look, you can probably see on camera, there's a faint line down the middle that makes it a little bit weaker, so it is a line that helps you to crease it. I can tell you the disadvantage is trying to put this in the angles. It's going to be a little bit weaker. You got to be careful with it. It can be done. I would hesitate to use a knife like this if you were a beginner, and instead I'd get a inside corner trowel like this one in this picture, because that inside part where this part right here is, because it doesn't have an edge like this, it's not going to cut your tape as easy. If I push this through here, you can see how easily I went through that. So I'm not real super fond of it for the inside corners, which would be taping in there. So other than that, on these flats, it will run through a banjo. I wouldn't run it through a bazooka, I don't think. I'm not sure if they say it will, but not sure if I'd try it or not, but hey, it might work. So let me just give you a little demonstration how it goes on. It kind of goes on a little bit clear, but it's basically the same thing as the paper tape. Put on some mud, spread it out, put a good solid coat on. So if I were you, I'd go over it a few times, make sure you got a good solid coat on, and then you do basically the same as paper tape. Put it in there, tear it to cut it. Now because this doesn't take as much force to wipe it down, you usually don't have to hold it. So let's see if that works this time, and it works. So basically the same thing. It's almost the same force, just a little bit less pressure. laying your knife down at about a 45. You don't want to stand your knife up real straight on either one of these, because that's where you wipe out all the mud. So keep your knife tilted over and wipe it like that. It really works pretty well. I've tried this now. I probably run about 7 or 8 rolls out on different jobs, and I use it on repairs, some new construction. I think it works great. Now, again, when I do repairs, I want to get them done quick, so I'm usually using the hot mud. If I were doing this with hot mud, I'd go ahead and just put a quick coat on it, kind of like I did the mesh tape there, feather it, and that quick I've got a coated joint that's now a day ahead of this one. I wouldn't try it with this one. I've tried it in the past. It shrinks too much, but with a hot mud it doesn't shrink because of the way hot mud works. And if you want to understand that better, watch my video called How to Fix a Small Drywall, or a Small Hole in Drywall. I've also got one that's going to be a medium hole, and it kind of works the same way, but that gets it done quicker. So anyway, before you go, I'm going to have that usual question for you, but I want to thank you for stopping by, and check out my links in the description down below. I try and put some useful links in there and some clickable links at the end. And also, as always, I appreciate your subscription. Click that little bell icon and you'll get notified of future upcoming videos. Now, today's question about this video is, have you tried any of these methods, and how well did it work for you? What did you find as an advantage or disadvantage? Maybe I'm forgetting something because I do this so much I don't always know the disadvantages, because I just know how to make it work for me. So for you, it's going to be different. Let me know in the comments below, and we will catch you on the next video. Thanks a lot.